So I'm going to just flip back to our general population again and just ask you, we touched on feeding our children, but you know, I know all around the world and in New Zealand, we have a huge issue with the health of our children. Where our diabetes in our kids is increasing by 3 to 5% per annum. It's just horrifying, really. Overweight and obesity. Have you got any thoughts, recommendations for parents about feeding their kids?
Well, based on, I mean, I don't study children other than my own, but the issues in the United States are pretty widely accepted that we've got lower physical activity, a lot more screen time, and kids snack in front of them. And so they're eating, you know, very poor quality nutrition, energy dense things with very little physical activity. And so one has to correct those kinds of lifestyle patterns. And it, you know, is it because we're just planting kids in front of screens as a babysitter? Or is it because it's not safe outside? I mean, there's all kinds of reasons that lead to that. But the bottom line is they're eating poor quality food, and we're basically exposing them to more of it with things like meatless Mondays. And we're not getting them enough exercise, enough physical activity. So, I mean, those are the issues, and I think the evidence for it's pretty clear. So, how do you tackle those kinds of things?
Yeah, that's the $60 million question, isn't it? How do we tackle it? But
Yeah.
I guess if we talk about it, at least that's a start anyway.
I mean, the physical activity is a huge thing. I mean, kids are, you know, designed to be out running and playing and running around and burning lots of calories, and then they can eat all kinds of things. But if they sit in front of screens all day, now their calorie needs are pretty low. And so are they getting nutrient dense foods? And now we got people believing that milk's bad for you, so they're eating these soy drinks and almond drinks and things that have virtually no protein in them. And they're eating, you know, chips and crisps and candies and all kinds of things that have no vitamins and minerals to speak of. So we've lowered the nutrient density, we've increased the calories, and we've decreased the activity. So of course we've got problems.
So my sort of last question to you is, actually, I know you're not a medical doctor, but how do we get our GP in providing better nutritional advice and getting away from food to their...
Our internet connection's breaking up a little bit. We're getting some pauses. I didn't actually hear the question. Can you hear me? Our connection seems to have frozen.
GPs and get some support for...
Okay, so our connection seemed to have gotten bad there, and I missed the entire question.
Sorry, I think we had a bit of a glitch in the...
Yeah, our internet has gotten overloaded.
We've been going too long. It's telling us it's time to wind up. Did you hear my question?
I'm sorry, I didn't. I really didn't hear the question.
I was talking about how do we talk to our doctors about supporting nutritional changes. I think they are a real key in going forward to resolving this problem. And how do we get away from just keeping on recommending these dietary guidelines?
Yeah. The problem in medical schools is that physicians really have very little nutrition training. And so what they're told is either hospital standard of care or what they hear from pharmaceutical companies. The American Heart Association for years has taken lots of money from pharmaceutical companies to keep perpetuating the myth about cholesterol. And you still hear people, doctors, who don't realize that dietary cholesterol has nothing to do with blood cholesterol. We still have people who believe saturated fat is the major problem, when in fact, the primary saturated fats in the blood come from carbohydrates being made into palmitate. We just have a huge amount of misinformation in the medical community, and they simply don't get it. And so I don't know. I think that consumers are going to have to realize that the medical community, the normal doctor, is not a good source of nutrition. And they're going to have to look for other places to get it. And that's a real problem now. I mean, it's hard to figure out where the charlatans are in the social media world that we're now in.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else you would like to say, or that I haven't covered or asked you, or?
Wow, we covered a lot of grounds. Let me think about. I think the misinformation relative to the environment, relative to the diet, and all of those things, we have to recognize that in the food arena, the least money is made on fresh foods. It's least money is made with vegetables, with fruits, with dairy, with eggs, with meats. The most money is made with ultra-processed foods and that come from grains. And so when you look at the arguments, one of the things you always need to look at is follow the money. And what you'll find is all of the government-based guidelines are heavily influenced by food companies that are selling processed foods. I mean, when was the last time you saw a commercial for broccoli? When was the last time you saw a good commercial for blueberries, or, those kinds of things? There's no money in it. They have high spoilage, they have high transportation costs, they have high refrigeration costs. Everybody would rather sell highly processed things. And so that's one of the things the consumer has to be sensitive to. I think all nutritionists would agree we'd be better off if we ate more vegetables, but that's not what the food industry is selling.
Yeah, really, really good points. I was given a Good Housekeeping magazine or something the other day by someone, and on one page it's telling us reduce our dairy intake, reduce our meat intake. On the next page it's advertising muesli bars as being, and
I mean, the statistic in the United States is from 1975 to 2010. The United States reduced its milk, eggs, and beef consumption by over 30% in all three categories. And we had epidemic increases in obesity and diabetes, and we had a 400-calorie increase in junk food per day. So basically, as we took the animal foods out, as people said we should for cholesterol and saturated fat, across the board, the American diet got worse. So the arguments simply are baseless in terms of reducing milk or eggs or meats.
And a lot of these cereal companies are, tax-free because they are part of, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I know, in Australia and New Zealand. So, there's, like you said, there's, without being a conspiracy theorist, but there's a whole lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And I mean, I don't have a problem with people following their cultural or religious beliefs, but to imply a moral superiority about that is simply unacceptable from a scientific standpoint. The science just doesn't support it.
All right. Well, you have given us a lot to think about today, and I think this is going to be incredibly useful for people to listen to. I'm sure that they'll have to listen to it a couple of times.
Sure, certainly.
to pick up some of the points, because protein is quite complex, and how we use it, and you've spent a lifetime studying it, so that's how complex it is.
Yeah, so if anybody would like to follow me, I'm on Twitter at Don Layman. I'm actually doing a webinar, a free webinar with the National Dairy Council on June 11th. So if you pick it up on Twitter, you can sign up for it if somebody wants to follow and learn a little more about protein.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Would I be able to get the details of that from you? Are you able?
Yeah, I can send you a link to that. But like I said, you can also find it on my Twitter feed. But I can send you a link to the National Dairy Council registration.
That would be fantastic, and I'll put that on my website and on the show notes of this as well. And is there anywhere else people can find you? So I've got your Twitter account, which I'll post, but do you do any other social media, Facebook or?
I don't. One of my colleagues is Gabrielle Lyon, and she and I are actually developing a website and a teaching program. So hopefully, maybe by the end of the year, we're going to actually open that up. So again, if people follow me on Twitter, I have an Instagram account, but I don't use it. But if you follow me, you'll sort of see that over time. But yeah, we hopefully have to your point earlier, where can people find information? We're actually going to open up a website that actually is available to the public to follow, and hopefully will give them another source of finding credible information. My colleague Gabrielle is a physician in New York City, so she has a personal health clinic there, and so she and I have worked together for over 20 years, and so it's a good combination. We're looking forward to it.
I'm familiar with Gabrielle, so I will endeavour to keep in touch with what you're doing with that, and make sure that our New Zealand audience can.
She and I have a lot of YouTube things out right now, and are producing some more. So that, tracking me through her would also be another way. Most of those things are all under her Lion feed at this point.
Okay, well, I will go and see if I can track some of those down and put some links to those as well, so people can follow. And I think this is the kind of information people need to hear over again, and from different perspectives, to really.
And as you said, I'm a protein expert, so I think about it differently. I also come out of an agricultural background. I grew up on a farm. I was associate dean of the College of Agriculture at the University of Illinois. I have a broad food background, so I just have a different perspective on it. And I have studied the environmental parts, the protein parts, the animal parts. I just have a different knowledge than most people can ever get.
Yeah, a very different perspective and very valuable. And you do a lot of consultation with food and nutrition industry as well, don't you? So
yeah, I've worked with most of the major food companies, from Kraft and Nestle's. I work with all the commodity groups, and if it relates to protein, I probably worked with them at some point in time.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much for your very generous time. And
it was my pleasure. I enjoyed it, and I look forward to getting back to New Zealand sometime.